Brown found a round-trip flight for $79. Not $79 each way. Not $79 before Brown discovered the plane only had one wing. $79 for the entire round trip. On the same comparison page, another flight cost $160. Brown looked at $79. Then Brown looked at $160. Then Brown performed the kind of advanced financial analysis normally reserved for very serious investors. Brown chose the smaller number. Brown had saved $81 in less than 30 seconds. At least, that was what Brown thought. Because by the time Brown finished booking the $79 flight, the total cost was not $79. It was almost $210. The airline did not secretly replace Brown's ticket with a private jet. Brown did not accidentally purchase the left wing. Brown simply bought the trip Brown actually needed. And that trip included several things the first number did not. So how did a $79 flight become a $210 flight, without the destination changing at all? The $79 price was real. Brown could pay $79 and receive transportation from one airport to another, and back again. That matters. This was not necessarily a fake price. The problem was that Brown treated the cheapest possible version of the flight as the price of Brown's version of the trip. Those were not the same product. The cheapest possible traveler might bring one small personal item. That traveler might accept whichever seat is assigned. That traveler may not need any optional service at all. For that person, $79 could be an excellent deal. Brown, however, was leaving for several days. Brown needed clothes. Brown needed shoes. Brown also needed a suspicious number of snacks for a flight lasting less than 3 hours. Brown was not buying the minimum trip. Brown was buying Brown's trip. But the comparison page could not see Brown's suitcase. It only saw the base fare. And the base fare was about to do an excellent impression of a complete price. Brown clicked the $79 flight. The booking page opened. The destination was correct. The dates were correct. Brown's confidence was dangerously high. Then the website asked a simple question. Would you like to add a checked bag? Brown looked at the suitcase. The suitcase looked back. The suitcase was clearly not going to fit inside a small personal item unless Brown had recently invented new laws of physics. The checked bag cost about $45. Brown frowned, but continued. After all, Brown had saved $81 on the ticket. $45 still left Brown ahead. Then Brown noticed two tiny words. Each way. The bag needed to come home too. Brown had somehow budgeted for a suitcase with no return plans. Outbound bag, $45. Return bag, $45. Total bag cost, $90. The $79 flight was now $169. Brown paused. The flight that beat the $160 option was now $9 more expensive. And Brown had not selected a seat yet. Next came the seat map. The website showed rows of tiny chairs. Some seats cost more. Some cost less. Some seats appeared to have been selected specifically for people who enjoy making eye contact with the bathroom door. Brown did not need luxury. Brown did not need extra legroom. Brown simply wanted to sit near Brown's travel companion instead of forming a temporary long-distance relationship across 12 rows. Seat selection cost about $20. $20 sounded manageable. Then Brown remembered the return flight. Outbound seat, $20. Return seat, $20. Total seat selection, $40. Now Brown's total looked like this. Base ticket, $79. Checked bag both ways, $90. Seat selection both ways, $40. Total, $209. Basically $210. Brown had clicked the $79 flight because it was cheaper than $160. Brown was now paying nearly $50 more than $160. Same Brown. Same destination. Very different comparison. What happened to Brown is called unbundling. Instead of selling one package containing the flight, a bag, a chosen seat, and several services, the company separates the trip into pieces. The base fare buys the transportation. Then travelers add the pieces they want or need. This system is not automatically bad. Imagine a traveler with one backpack who does not care where they sit. Why should that traveler be forced to pay for Brown's suitcase? Unbundling can let a light traveler buy a genuinely cheaper trip. And not every add-on is a hidden fee. Some are real choices. Brown could skip seat selection. Brown could pack less. Brown could decide that 7 shirts for a 2-day trip represented an emotional problem rather than a luggage requirement. The psychological problem appears when Brown compares two different things. Brown sees the base fare from airline A. Brown sees what may be a more complete fare from airline B. Then Brown declares airline A cheaper before rebuilding the same trip on both sides. Brown is not comparing apples with apples. Brown is comparing an apple with the first installment of another apple. There was another reason Brown continued. Once Brown clicked the $79 flight, Brown mentally owned the deal. The cheap fare became Brown's little victory. Every new charge felt separate from the ticket. $45 for a bag? Annoying, but Brown was already booking. $20 for a seat? Small enough to continue. Another charge on the return trip? Brown had already entered a name, birthday, phone number, email address, emergency contact, and possibly Brown's opinion on the meaning of life. Starting over felt expensive even when starting over cost nothing. This is why the order of information matters. Brown saw $79 first. That number became the anchor. Every later cost was judged as a small addition to a cheap flight. Brown did not emotionally experience one $210 purchase. Brown experienced one exciting $79 purchase, followed by several irritating little clicks. But Brown's bank account does not care how the booking process felt. It adds every click together. So Brown creates a new rule. Never compare the first number. Compare the same trip. Brown writes down one formula. Ticket plus bags plus seats plus payment fees plus other required costs equals trip total. Payment fees or other charges may be zero. Optional services Brown does not need should also be zero. The goal is not to add everything the website offers. The goal is to add everything Brown will actually buy. First, Brown defines the trip. 1 round-trip ticket. 1 checked bag in both directions. 2 selected seats, 1 for each flight. Then Brown builds that identical trip with every option. The $79 fare becomes about $209 in this example. The $160 fare might remain $160. Or it might become $180. Or $240. Brown cannot know from the first search result. The $160 option is not automatically better. The $79 option is not automatically a trap. One of them becomes better only after Brown compares the total cost of the same trip. The cheapest headline does not win. The cheapest completed itinerary wins. Brown now books flights in 3 passes. Pass 1. Define the non-negotiables. Does Brown need a checked bag? Does Brown need to sit with someone? Is a carry-on included? Is there another cost Brown must pay to take this exact trip? Pass 2. Reach the final total without paying. Brown continues through the booking process until the full price appears, but stops before purchase. Brown records the total. Then Brown repeats the same process with the other flight. Pass 3. Compare the complete trips. Brown checks the total price, departure time, arrival time, airport, connections, and restrictions that actually matter. Only then does Brown choose. This takes longer than clicking the first cheap number. Usually a few minutes longer. But those minutes can prevent Brown from spending the rest of the booking process discovering that a suitcase has become a luxury subscription. The rule is simple. Search with the base fare, decide with the total fare. On Brown's next trip, the website asks, "Would you like to add a checked bag?" Brown smiles. Not this time. Brown puts on 1 shirt. Then another shirt. Then a sweater. Then a jacket. Then another jacket. By layer 8, Brown is roughly the same width as the airplane. Brown waddles through the airport. Brown cannot lower either arm. Brown cannot reach Brown's passport. Brown may no longer be able to sit down. But Brown has defeated the luggage fee. Probably. Then Brown reaches the gate and looks at the boarding pass. Middle seat. Last row. Brown stares at the 8 layers of clothing. Then at the tiny seat. And finally learns the real lesson. The goal is not to avoid every add-on. The goal is to know which add-ons Brown needs before deciding which flight is cheapest. Because the $79 flight was not necessarily dishonest. It was simply incomplete for Brown. And the cheapest flight is not the one with the smallest number at the beginning. It is the one with the smallest total at the end.